I would like to tell you guys that one time I wrote a sin that had the word poop in it, and Chris asked me to change it because he was a little uncomfortable with that word. Welcome to Behind the Sins, presented by Cinemasins.
Welcome to Behind the Sins, a look at what's going on inside the world of Cinemasins. I'm Aaron Dicer, and this week I'm joined by fellow Baffle-Gabbers Ian Whittington.
Hello. Wait, what? Why am I first?
Jeremy Scott.
Yo.
And Deneé Hughes.
I watch movies.
We write for
does
Cinemasins
not.
and TV Sins and do various other things inside the Cinemasins universe as well. And welcome back to the 2022 Battle of the Sins. We're deciding the actual most sinful movie that we sinned during 2022 of the 107 movies we sinned during that year. What is the most sinful? We are at the final final deliberations of round one. After this episode, we will be moving into round two. A quick reminder, if you're participating at home and voting at the challenge.com Sin Battle website, that you may need to go there and get your round two votes in. You maybe went and did your round one votes and haven't thought about it since then. If you want to, you can go there now and get your round two votes in as we head through this. Today will be one of those days where we depend on your votes. There are four of us here today. So if there is a 2v2 tie, it will go to the audience for the determining vote. So thank you for doing that, and we appreciate your participation. If the participants are ready, we will go ahead and get into the battles. Here is how it's going to work. We will present the battle, and then anybody who wrote on the script for either of those movies will have a chance to talk about what makes that movie sinful and why it might be more sinful than another movie. Then after they've had their say, we will go around and each of us will deliberate and vote. So we'll go straight to the voting, and you'll talk about here's why I'm voting for this one, or here's my thoughts on these two things, whatever you want to do during your vote.
Battle stations!
Fight!
Time for the one-on-ones.
Who will win this year's $1 million game?
Round one, ding ding.
We will start it off with West Side Story 2021 versus The Green Knight. Which is the more sinful movie? This is a 62 seed versus a 67 seed. So this is a close one. 128 sins for West Side Story, 126 for The Green Knight. I wrote on both of these, and nobody else did. So this will be...
Okay, I'm going to get a coffee. See you in 10 minutes.
I wrote with Daniel on West Side Story, and I wrote with Chris on The Green Knight. I do remember, however, Ian, that you reviewed The Green Knight.
Oh, I did. Yes.
Because you had you definitely had opinions after reviewing The Green Knight.
Yes.
West Side Story is a phenomenal movie that maybe should have never existed.
Yes!
The sins in the new version of West Side Story maybe are just kind of at the heart of its existence and what is it trying to do. But other than that, I mean, Spielberg just knows how to make good movies. What? So, there's not really a lot to pick apart other than the sins of the actual story, which, have been there since the version in the 60s or whatever. Green Knight, on the other hand, I feel has the main sin of just absolutely lingering in everything it does in a way that doesn't necessarily impact anything other than tone and maybe aesthetics and artistry and those kind of things. As I look at those two movies, I have a pretty clear choice, but let's go ahead and vote. Ian, what are your thoughts on these two movies?
I really did not enjoy Green Lantern. The Green Book? No. Name of this movie.
The Green Knight.
The Green Knight, there we go. It was... I mean, for me, it was style over substance, and I love that scene of them, like, there's huge giants walking through all of the things, but I'm too busy wondering, where am I? What does it mean? What am I doing? I don't want to be here. I feel sad. It didn't hit me in the right way. And West Side Story is just pure joy. As problematic as it is in many, many ways, I had an absolute blast with it. But yeah, I almost wish I'd been on the Green Knight to sin it, but I think it would have been painful for me. It would have been one of those sin every 30 seconds, and most of them devolving into "Why am I here?" So yes, my vote is for the Green Knight Lanterns book.
Green Knight is one of those sin scripts when you write on it that, at least for me, it was a constant battle of not saying the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And you'll find that with some movies where it's like the thing that you find sinful about it is just so prevalent and through the whole thing that you just want to keep saying the same thing over again. So your vote was
the Green Land Knight. The Green. Not that was accident. I'm happy to give it another chance at some point, but yeah, the Green Knight.
Ian votes for the Green Knight, and on a Green Knight you could use a Green Lantern. So
indeed,
that's what you could do. Deneé, what about you? What are you going to vote for?
You know, I saw West Side Story once a long time ago, so it was the first one, not this one. And then I saw the Green Knight Sins video,
counts,
which is how I watched that movie. Now, I just want to mention this is going to be a trend on today's episode. So, I have very little to go off of as far as like what the actual movie, but I remember getting the feeling, the vibe that the way that the Green Knight was kind of laid out was a bit confusing, but also like fantastically mysterious at the same time. So it's like left a lot for your own interpretation about what was being said rather than it being kind of clear. And I feel like West Side Story has a bit more of a clear like story that it's sharing. So I'll say the Green Knight is more simple.
Jeremy.
You guys are so confident in your wrongness. But I have a sneaking suspicion the reason... Okay, first of all, I have two reasons for my vote being West Side Story. And that's what Aaron said right out of the gate, that this movie did not need to exist. And every time I said anything about that on Twitter, I got dozens of people going, he's fixing the mistakes with the racism from the first one. And I'm like, why isn't he making Breakfast at Tiffany's? Why isn't he making Tea House of the August Moon? Why isn't he remaking any of these movies that did that same thing? That's not why he's making this. Now, I do think the best thing about the movie, which also infuriated me, was not giving us subtitles for the Spanish speaking. Because in the time that this movie takes place, I think it's absolutely appropriate that English speakers wouldn't know everything that the Spanish speakers are saying, and vice versa. I thought that was a nice immersion, even though I actually knew some of what they were saying because I speak a little Spanish, but not very much. But anyway, I hate that movie exists. I hate that he made it so well because I feel like they could have told an original story with that, mastery. The Green Knight, drugs, my friends. Find some non-life-threatening drugs.
Okay.
If you revisit this movie, take some edibles and then sit down. And this is how I experienced the movie the first time I saw it. And I loved it. And I've seen it 2 or 3 times since then. And I don't know if I love it still, but it's all that stuff that doesn't add to the story for you adds to the enjoyment for me when I'm not sober.
I changed my vote.
I'm here for that. Yeah.
I changed my vote. I vote West Side Story.
All right. I will
me.
absolutely. I will accept that. Ian, are you literally changing your vote as well? Deneé, are you literally changing your vote?
I really am. I agree.
All right.
Come a bund. I can't do it.
I didn't realize I was that persuasive.
That is valid. You mentioned the subtitles. I remember one of the things we did sin about the subtitles in West Side Story, which really annoys me when they do this, is instead of subtitling the Spanish with Spanish subtitles,
that would have been great. Yeah,
they subtitled conversing in Spanish.
Yeah, that's not.
And I'm just like, just put the Spanish
That's
words.
lazy.
Like
Yeah.
that's the same fun, interesting way to do this. But you at least allow for the people who are hearing impaired or need the subtitles to understand context and what's going on, to go, oh, they're making a specific choice here. They're not just not telling me what they're saying. They're leaving it in Spanish because we wouldn't necessarily understand it. So I wanted to mention that since you mentioned that. All right, so let's see. So that's Deneé and Jeremy voting for West Side Story. Ian voting for The Green Knight. I will also be voting for The Green Knight. Although the the industrial romantic complex stuff that's in West Side Story does annoy me quite a bit. It's not enough to overcome the Green Knight. So it is 2-2. So it will go to the audience, and the audience says he tabs over to find it. So in the battle of the Green Knight versus West Side Story, the audience 70% to 30% goes with West Side Story being the more sinful.
Yes!
So Jeremy,
Fucking
you
love you,
convinced
audience.
Deneé, and that was enough to get it to the audience, and the audience has moved on.
This is why our electoral system is so broken.
Does that mean that the next round will be West Side Story versus Paul Blart Mall Cop?
Yes, that is
Wow.
what that means.
Awesome.
Amazing.
All right, let's move on for now to Bridesmaids versus the Peanuts movie. This is a 99 seed versus a 30 seed. Bridesmaids with 159 sins. Peanuts movie with 106 sins. Deneé, you wrote on both of these.
I sure did.
So why don't you kick us off with some thoughts on what makes Bridesmaids sinful?
Yeah, I was made. So
Yep.
that's about all you need to say about that. I think I don't remember watching this movie. I never really know what to expect because sometimes I'm assigned things and I have no context and I don't do any research before just hitting play. And this one was an interesting one because I do love to see women in the lead and I do love to see confident comedy too. Like it's really fun for me to watch. This is a disgusting scene, but the poop scene where they get the diarrhea sharts while they're trying on dresses. It's for me, it's like
I think that's a little bit repetitive to say diarrhea sharts. I think you just need one of those words.
Yeah, that's true. No, you're right about that. Yeah. I should have given that more.
I mean, unless you've got a really, really strong case of gas.
We'll see. Okay, all right. Let's talk
Yeah.
about this briefly then. So in my experience, shart is like when you toot and it like flies out. That
Yes,
to me
yes.
is a shart.
Yeah.
But having diarrhea doesn't mean you have sharts. They're not like the same thing. You
good.
could
That's
have
fair.
diarrhea.
That's fair. I take it
You
back.
have your whole bathroom experience.
It was a necessary adjective. I take it
toot
back.
later, shart. So you could have both.
Yeah.
Got it.
This was
I would like to tell you guys that one time I wrote a sin that had the word poop in it, and Chris asked me to change it because he was a little uncomfortable with that word.
just the word poop.
Just so glad he's not on this
Yeah, he would
episode.
not enjoy this.
Oh no. But anyway, my point being like there was part of it that I was thinking this is great because we're seeing dirty gross humor from and women can say it instead of it being like, oh, ladies can't say this stuff. So part of it I was kind of having a good time in some ways. And Kristen Wiig is fascinating to me. I like to watch what she does. I'm like always kind of curious about her. But it really didn't have much meaning for me in general. Whereas Peanuts, it's fun to see something reinvented that I felt like could have another round of creation. Like I know we're all tired of going back and mining old things to bring back into the new public. So I don't fucking know how to feel about that. I liked it though because it was an interesting like animation and I enjoyed seeing how they were reinventing the conversations that these little kids have, and it was simple. Got to see like, Snoopy doing Snoopy stuff and falling in Snoopy love.
Was it
and
hard to sin? Was it hard to sin the Peanuts? Like what made it so sinful?
You have to.
It's my job.
It's my job.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Like it was easier to find stuff that I felt it was easier to find sins in Bridesmaids than it was for Peanuts. So for me, I know where I'm voting. And then I didn't really give a lot of context for what these movies are about, but I don't know that we need that.
No, I wrote with you on Bridesmaids, and I will say that what makes Bridesmaids sinful to me are the same kind of things that make these movies sinful when men do them. Like, it's like
It was really lowbrow.
Yeah, there's so much lowest common denominator stuff. And I think there's also a real almost disconcerting focus of the movie and these women on couple culture and relationships being the most important thing. And I always get a little always have to balance myself when I talk about this stuff because I know that is the culture, right? Like that is the culture we live in. So like if it's representing something that is real, okay, I understand that, but it seems to say things about that culture that I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't have to necessarily be that way. As encapsulated by Deneé's wonderful Beck-Fail test bonus round.
That was interesting. I forgot I did that.
In this script, which just strung together all the times women are talking to other women about men.
About men. It was the bonus round of that video.
Yeah.
And it was difficult to put that part together because he wanted to be fun. But yeah, it is very, very heavy-handed with the relationship stuff, and I hate that. So that makes it easy to sin, but you also don't want to go. I didn't want to go too deep into it because it's like about two best friends, and then like Kristen's character is getting to know her friends' other friends, and then they're kind of like one-upping each other, and then they become friends by the end, and they're all just interested in who they're dating, and none of that is really interesting to me. So of course, I like the poop stuff the best.
Jeremy, kick us off with the voting.
So the problem with Bridesmaids, and I'm going to tie this to a completely unrelated conversation we had on a completely other different forum, is that much like Dumb and Dumber, the comedy it throws at me I have seen before. And I do suspect that in some cases that may be the point, that because this is a female response to the traditionally male-driven, raunchy, R-rated comedy. And for that, I'll give it some leeway, like the poop scene, because that literally happens in Dumb and Dumber. And even then, and that was 25, 30 years ago, it wasn't original then.
Right. But was it in a sink? I'm just kidding. I'm sorry.
But Bridesmaids made me laugh. But Peanuts, I think that movie's a touch of magic. I think, and I grew up watching the specials and reading the everyday cartoons in the paper, and we had some collections of the strips. And so the fact that this movie gives like 7 minutes to Snoopy chasing the Red Baron, which is just a freaking daydream fantasy of his, was magical to me. And maybe it's a generational thing, but I thought it was an excellent adaptation. I agree with Deneé that the animation style is really clever. So the more sinful of the two is Bridesmaids by a mile.
All right. Jeremy.
Also, if they made Bridesmaids today, they would go to Nashville. Those characters.
Yes.
Yeah, they should.
Absolutely.
That's exactly where they should be.
Absolutely. Ian, your debate and vote.
This was my first exposure to Peanuts. In general, and Charlie Brown. Obviously, I knew.
Good thing you're not allergic.
I now wish I was. I obviously heard of them, knew of the cultural significance, but I really enjoyed this movie. It's adorable, and the animation style is fun. The Red Baron stuff, I was like, this has nothing to do with the movie, and I would sin it so hard as such, but it's so much fun. The big thing I didn't like was the movie seems to be rather centered around love and children seducing other children, and I just for me, I was like, can we just stop encouraging this at such an early age? It has the same coupling problems that Bridesmaids does in this Bridesmaids versus Charlie Brown debate. But Bridesmaids can burn in hell. That gets my vote. I was the only person in my friendship group that did not like this movie, and it was then that I realized I had taste. I love that it did kind of put it. And a lot of my female friends loved it for the reasons that you've said. And I was like, cool, more power to you. I hope this ages poorly. And I think it has.
I will also be voting for Bridesmaids. The Peanuts movie is really great. And the sins it has are to be understood. And, there aren't that many of them. But Bridesmaids has a many loaded sins. So, Deneé, your vote?
Snoopy. Just kidding.
That is a sweep for Bridesmaids. The audience agrees 67% to 33%.
Wow, 33% of people can be so wrong.
You never know what's going on in somebody's mind. All right, moving on to The Kingsman versus Nobody. Ian, you wrote on The Kingsman, so talk about it for a little bit. What makes it sinful?
Man, I was ready to not like this movie and hated myself for liking it so much. I had so much fun because the other Kings People movies just did not do a thing for me, really. Like, It just I see what we're going here. This is a dirty James Bond, but I'm not really like. There's the Colin Firth scene in the church where he brutalizes everyone is a masterclass, and I would now score it with "Give me 3 days of
All right, if you're playing the drinking game, Ian has referenced the outtakes. You can take a drink.
So yeah, that's the only scene I remember, other than something about anal at the end of one of them. But this one I just had a great time with, and I kind of bought into the Fast and Furiousness of it all, where we are in a alternate history kind of thing here, where everyone survives everything. They're all basically superheroes, and this is a great playground to play in. It's what if Rasputin was like this? What if this is how Hitler did what Hitler did? And I kind of want a couple more movies during this time. But it has the kind of like the standard action movie sins of surviving things, convenient plans. It's been a while since I've watched it, but I do remember some nonsense with a parachute where I'm like, well, that's the end of the movie because he dies. Like in any other set of actual physics, he does not survive that homemade parachute dive.
Yeah.
And I just remember the plan overall of the pieces the guy above Rasputin has to put into place, and the dominoes that have to fall in order for this Scotsman to get, I think he's fighting for independence for Scotland, and just goes about it the most convoluted way possible. So yeah, it kind of just has the standard action movie sins.
I mean, I was going to mention it's a high seed. Like it's a 35 seed. It has 151 sins.
Yeah, I remember this being a heavy script.
Yeah,
really heavy.
Yeah. Jeremy, tell us about Nobody. You wrote on that with Daniel. That had 111 sins, 94 seed. Expected to lose this match, but what makes Nobody sinful?
I guess you could argue there's not a ton that we haven't seen before. Older dad type beats ass because he's former assassin, CIA, Ranger, what have you, like Equalizer and Taken movies. Like we've seen this kind of thing. So that's, I think, its biggest knock. I think it does a lot of unique twists on some of the tropes. Like when he finally gets captured and thrown in the trunk, and then down the road, the car freaking crashes because he's punching through the back seat, and the realisticness of his pain in some of these fights, where he doesn't seem like Superman, and I feel like they way overused the Sinatra era show tune underneath the fight. There's like 3 different fights in that movie where I gotta be me, and I'm like, I think maybe one time that would have been best. But in general, this is a great movie. I don't have any true complaints as a viewer. As a sin writer, it wasn't too hard to find stuff to pick apart, but I love it. It's gave me one of my favorite moments of the last 5 years when he's having that fight on the bus, and it pans by that girl who's just sitting there with her coffee, and she has this face on this like, oh my god, like she's stoned. It's awesome. Anyway, yeah, and I haven't seen the King's People movie because the first one felt excessive to me. Whatever it was trying to be, I feel like it went to 11 instead of 10. It was over caffeinated for me, but yeah. And I'm not inclined to trust Ian on his opinion of that movie.
No, you should not.
If I can tip my vote a little bit. So there.
I'll kick off the voting then, because I really feel like this is a really great matchup. What's interesting about most of these matchups is how ridiculous they are. Like to think about comparing the Peanuts movie to Bridesmaids.
Yeah.
Like who does this, right?
We do.
Nobody versus the Kingsman is kind of a tale of 2 movies doing the same thing in different ways. They're both doing over the top action. They're both living in an elevated reality kind of idea, and I really think Nobody understands how to do that with a little more like gravitas and authenticity than the Kingsman movie does, and that's likely very intentional. It's just I find it a little less sinful because it really feels like when you're trying to sin Nobody, or imagine if I had tried to sin Nobody, that you really have to dial in on the villain's plan type sins, like, where how people are deciding what they're doing, all that kind of stuff. Whereas the Kingsman, I don't imagine having much difficulty at all finding sins in the way that it's doing things. So my vote is going to be for the Kingsman as the more sinful movie. Deneé.
Yeah, I think I agree. I've been sort of watching the trailers as we talk.
Nice.
Because having not watched any of them, I do want to have a valid opinion. Is this valid? No.
None of it is.
Probably
not
not.
a single second of any of this is valid.
Trailers are great for determining that.
As you were talking about what you're saying about them being a good matchup, Aaron, I agree, because when I'm watching them, they both have that same kind of like action vibe, fight sequence vibe. But Bob Odenkirk, I think, is amazing. And I love the idea of him kind of being in that action lead. And I like what you said, Jeremy, about it having a little bit of a twist on it with being more realistic. Whereas it's hard to find the Kingsman realistic. In my professional opinion, Kingsman is more sinful.
All right. Deneé votes for the Kingsman. Jeremy.
Kingsman.
And Ian.
Yeah, it's Kingsman. That's pretty, yeah.
All right.
It's cut and dry.
Audience agrees 76% to 24%. Say the Kingsman is the more sinful movie, and that will be moving on to the next round. Next battle is between Uncharted and the Bob's Burger movie.
Doesn't matter what it's going up against. That's my vote.
Fair enough. But let's converse a little, shall we? You guys have plenty to say about Uncharted. This was Jeremy and Ian. 134 sins and a 51 seed.
That's all?
Yeah, that's all.
I feel bad. It should be...
We should have given that 40 more cents.
Just for existing.
At least.
Because the sins apparently matter. Chris and myself wrote on the Bob's Burgers movie, and that had 121.375 sins.
Yeah.
And that's a 78 seed. Jeremy, talk a little bit about what makes Uncharted sinful. That explains it. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment.
That's how I felt.
Lazy averageness. The been there, done thatness. The blatant ripoffness. The odd aging down a character that gamers know to be like older. The Mark Wahlbergness. The moment on the boat when it's in the air and he swings out over the edge on the rope and then swings back in to kick his opponent 1,000 feet above an ocean. A buddy of mine, whenever he's watching something, at night he'll send me a screenshot and try and see if I can guess it. And I'm very good at guessing. And the other night he sent me a screenshot of this from one of the first scenes, and I knew what it was. And I said, "Well, this is terrible. I would avoid it. I hate this movie." And he said, "Crap, my wife wanted to watch it." Then like an hour and a half later, he comes back and he goes, "What the hell did I just watch?" And so he vented a little bit. And I was like, "I tried to warn you, man. This is utter crap. And this movie could win the whole damn bracket."
Ooh, throwing it out there. Ian, continue the thoughts.
I think that moment is when the narrator left the room and just screamed.
Oh, yeah.
And just screamed and said, "This is bullshit."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's let's put Tom Holland in it and it'll be great.
Yeah, that's basically
it's so frustrating to me. And I the problem with the toxic fandom thing of "this is my property, I own it, you're doing it wrong," is that it can sometimes bury legitimate criticism, which is Tom Holland is miscast in this role. He is not Nathan Drake. It does not feel right. I don't know who you're making this movie for, if not for the gamers. And people, before even a trailer was released, they were like, "It's finally possible. We've adapted a game into a movie." I was like, you have, but not the good bits. And this would have been a great matchup against the Kingsman as well, the Kingsman as well, because the Kingsman does not take itself seriously. It is fun. This is so trying to be Indiana Jones meets James Bond meets Spider-Man, and it falls flat all the time. Not even to mention the ridiculous villain planning in it. So I vote. What's the other movie?
It's not even the best video game based Indiana Jones style movie.
It's not.
It was Alicia Vikander, right, that did the
Tomb
latest
Raider.
Tomb Raider. That's
Yeah.
actually a halfway decent movie.
is.
Like
I
it's
liked
certainly
it.
better than this.
Yeah.
The
The OG Tomb Raider movies are better than this.
You're not wrong, and those are terrible. So yeah, good thoughts. I will talk a little bit about the Bob's Burgers movie and tell you why this movie is more sinful than you might think. It is a pretty sinful movie. They try to do like this half musical thing, and yet like none of the music is interesting. None of the lyrics are great. Like, and it sings 2 songs during the entire thing, and neither one is good. It's just like, what are we even doing here? It has that thing that some animated films do where every single character, especially if it's based on a previous property, has to have its own side plot. So you've got like an A plot, then a B plot with one of the kids, a C plot with another one of the kids, a D plot with, the other kid, or whatever. And so that whole thing continues to happen as well. So it's a pretty sinful movie. By the way, the 0.375 was because one of the characters at one point in the movie said the line, "I'm starting to love fractions," and then there's no narration. It just adds 3/8 of a sin.
Nice.
So that's how that happened. So yeah, time for the voting. Deneé, since you're the non-writer on these, what's your thought, deliberation, and vote?
Oof. Well, this is hard because it seems so. Uncharted was like a video game. Now they're making it into a movie, and then there's Bob's Burgers that has a TV show, but they want to make a movie to kind of like attract a wider audience, and so it seems like both sort of fuck up the material in some way. So I have no idea. I have no idea what to do.
I can help.
Okay.
Flip a coin. Flip a double-sided Uncharted coin.
Yes. It will solve the plot of whatever movie you're in.
I think I'm going to go Bob's Burgers
Because you want me
I
to
think,
leave.
Because I think Aaron might go Bob's Burgers, and that means it's 2 versus 2, so it's going to go to the audience.
That's not playing the game right.
Yes, it is.
you know
It's
what?
playing the game my way, bitch.
Who knows?
Doing like Price is Right style tricks on us, where she just bid $1.
$1. I bid $1.
I bid
Jeremy,
$1.
what is your deliberation and vote?
Me?
Yes.
Uncharted. Can I vote twice?
No, you can't.
I think he can. If anybody can, Jeremy
It's
can.
Jeremy.
Vote twice.
That's true. Yeah. If there's anybody on this podcast can do whatever they want. Jeremy goes with Uncharted. Ian?
Yeah, no, it's Uncharted.
And I will say that about a week ago, I played Uncharted for the first time ever. I played Uncharted something Thieves. Is that 4? I don't know. Anyways, it was on.
Yeah.
I think it came out on PS4 back in the day. But
Legacy of
yeah.
Thieves.
yeah, something like that. And really, really liked it. Yeah. I love like the climbing dynamic and the parkour dynamic of the action is really, really fun. I will say playing that movie made me think this movie is worse than I did when I saw it.
Oh, wow.
Playing a game?
Yeah, or playing the game made this movie worse in hindsight. I had never played the game when I saw the movie. I was like, this is fine. Tom Holland's always, fun to hang out with. But he is so not that character.
No, he's not.
He is so not that character.
This is not an Uncharted movie.
And the movie doesn't excel at the things that Uncharted excels at. The answer is Uncharted is the most sinful movie of these two. The audience agrees. Has Uncharted at 73% and Bob's Burgers at 20.
Too low.
27%. All right, so we will move on to the next one, which is Sing 2 versus The Lost Boys. Jeremy, you wrote on both of these scripts. So let's start with The Lost Boys. What makes The Lost Boys a sinful movie? By the way, 118 cents for The Lost Boys. 137 for Sing 2. So Sing 2 is the favorite at the 46 seed versus the 83. So thoughts.
What The Lost Boys has going for it is basically two things, and they're related. The first is nostalgia, and the second is music. But the music breeds the nostalgia. I think this is an awesome soundtrack, and that the music throughout the film is used really well to help set the tone. And when I was a teenager, I loved this movie. When I went back to Cine boy, it's hard to love this movie.
It really is.
It does not hold together. It's like a wet paper towel with a bunch of rocks on top of it, and it's going to fall at any minute. There's a lot of casual 80s sexism, and it's super short. I forgot how short it was when you're a kid. You know, it feels like every movie feels like 2 hours long. It's 2 hours long. It's 2 hours long. This movie's really short. And yeah, but the problem is it's going up against Sing 2. And it's my understanding that the first Sing movie was actually enjoyable. I think Aaron liked it, right?
Yeah. The first thing is a lot of fun. Yeah.
Whatever they put in the first one that made it a lot of fun, they vacuumed all that out for the second one, and they made a movie that actively annoyed me. By the time I was done watching this movie, I was angry. It just felt, and I haven't seen the first one, but it just felt like a complete and total disrespect to the reputation that I thought the first one had. Hated it. It might be worse than Uncharted.
2 bracket winners in neighboring conversations.
Deneé, you also wrote on Sing 2. So what makes Sing 2 sinful?
I also hadn't seen Sing 1, so that was really interesting because I had to I watched it and then I thought, well, what was the magic? What makes this a sequel? What makes it something that people want to come back for? And one of the things that bummed me out is that the first one seemed to be all about the importance of like your local theater and something really magical happening in your community.
Yes.
And then it completely abandons that to say, we don't want to be here anymore. We want to go to Vegas. And we want to have...
That's wild.
And it was like forcing all of these characters who were very comfortable in their home with their own, coming into their own understanding of their own stuff. It was like forcing them to just amplify out to become this bigger, better thing driven by, I guess, greed for attention. And then this weird also idea that they had to do it or they would be killed by a wolf or something. I don't know. But it was cleverly disguised because it's really pretty to look at. And I didn't know who Halsey was before this movie. She plays the daughter wolf that has this one song that's just like, holy shit, people can sing. And I love listening to people sing. And this idea that like they're going to go get the old school singers to come back and make their show. Like that's kind of fun until you really start to think about how fucked up it is that they didn't do what they do best in their hometown that they just spent the last movie building. And then they had to go get this big rock star and guilt trip him out of his own pain.
Yes.
To go do a big show. And it was really like, what are we doing here? It's pretty. And there's a couple scenes that fucking cracked me up. There's this, the iguana fucking kills me. There's this, I laughed so hard at that iguana character. And the music was really fun in this moment. And then they're like up and it has a really fun beat to it. Unfortunately,
Ian,
it's very, very sinful.
Kick off the debating and the vote.
I thought, I haven't seen Sing 2, definitely not, other than a couple of clips that Deneé has shown me. I thought
The
I'd
funny
seen
ones specifically.
the funny ones, the good clips. It wasn't just to torture me. I thought I'd seen The Lost Boys, but I was... Go on.
When the iguana is driving down the road.
Yes, I've seen that clip many times now. Thank you, Deneé.
Oh my god, that cracks my shit up. Can we pause and watch it now?
What song are they singing?
Oh my god, I'm trying to remember. I think it was it's
Is it Kyrie eleison?
It should be.
No, it's like a you wanted to. Why'd you
Oh,
leave it?
yeah.
You
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to.
Little makeup. You wanted to.
was
Which
like-
I only know from the Weird Al Polka version.
Yeah, of course you don't know
So,
the system version.
I
Yeah.
have no idea what song you all three just agreed.
System of a Down? Is that
System of a Down, yeah.
Is it not sabotage? That's not that
Anyway.
one. Anyway.
Sorry. Go on, you were saying, Ian.
Yes, I was saying, and I thought I'd seen The Lost Boys, but I was actually thinking of Stand By Me. So I haven't seen, because Keith Sutherland is evil in both.
Yes, indeed.
So I haven't seen The Lost Boys. I have no idea which way to vote because they both seem sinful in different ways that are really meaningful to me. So sinning the 80s and sexism and movies that were great that haven't aged well is really important. Sinning animation that is lazy and shits on its predecessor is also really bad.
Is The Lost Boys original? Like, was it an original movie?
It is,
in
but based on
that
a book?
Vampires are original. I mean, whether it was based on a book or not, I wouldn't think.
Because I was just thinking, like, that also might play into my vote because I also haven't seen Lost Boys, but I know of it.
Right. Let me see.
And like Sing 2 obviously is going to lean heavy on its first one to have a successful second. But was Lost Boys was it an original? It's weird though.
Original. It's not based on a book.
I think I am leaning narrowly towards Sing 2 because of the product of its time thing and watching it in that bubble, and Sing 2 really feeling like a cash grab. So
All right.
Sing 2 is my vote.
Ian votes for Sing 2. I will, really want to vote for Lost Boys here. Just because when you really, it's one of those things where it's a wake up. Is this wake up thing that we do when we send movies from the 80s or whatever in nostalgia, and just be like, things existed in a context, and we no longer live in that context, and that's worth paying attention to. But no, it's Sing 2. Sing 2 is the more sinful movie of these two. It is a real shame that it squandered what made the first one so special. And I think the reason it probably happened was because they, in some ways, rightly ascertained that one of the things that people loved about the first one were these animals singing pop songs, right? And singing popular songs. And they went, okay, well, that's got to be the foundation. Let's figure out, how do we build a plot around that? Why do they need to be singing pop songs again? And, and they just went with a direction that didn't actually make a lot of character sense, and it kind of ruined the whole thing. So Sing 2 is my vote as well. Jeremy?
Sing 2. Sing 2. Sing 2.
Deneé?
Sing 2. Sing.
All right. Audience does agree, although it was the closest vote of any of the votes we will see today. 58% to 42% agree that Sing 2 was the more sinful movie. Moving on to Morbius.
Which one, Aaron?
When you say something like Uncharted might win the whole damn bracket, you've forgotten that
Yeah, you should
Morbius
really look
is yet
ahead a
to
little
come.
bit. Morbius versus Romancing the Stone.
Oh, fuck.
Let's see. Who wrote on Morbius? Jeremy, you wrote on Morbius. Deneé, you wrote on Romancing the Stone. They're fairly evenly matched in number of sins. 131 for Morbius, 125 for Romancing the Stone, a 70 versus a 59 seed. Jeremy, why don't you kick us off with what makes Morbius so sinful?
I'm not trying to be funny. I'm genuinely. It's like, you ever pulled into a parking lot that's mostly empty, and you like freeze because your brain can't choose one when there's all the choices available?
Yes.
I do this
Paralysis
all
of
the time.
analysis.
Yes, and so that's what happened. Everything that Morbius does is bad. The writing is bad. The acting is bad. The effects are bad. The Vulture showing up is bad. Is that the movie he shows up in? Or is that
Yeah, no,
Venom
he
2?
does. I forgot about that.
Yes, it is.
He turns up in prison. He gets bamfed there.
It's just it's bad. It's that you don't get to become a meme if you're not bad enough. And this thing, I watched a trailer the other day for the Marvels, and underneath it, all of the top comments were Morbin Time related comments. My favorite part is when the three girls said it's Morbin Time. That's almost a year ago this movie came out, right? And Romancing the Stone, much like Lost Boys, it came out in my youth, and it was one of those movies that was on the USA Network or TBS almost every weekend, and I saw it over and over and over again. And it is at least doing something somewhat original, whereas Morbius.
that explains it all. You don't need to say any more. Deneé, you wrote on Romancing the Stone with
Yes.
Chris.
Yes,
Talk
I
a little
did.
bit about what makes Romancing the Stone sinful.
Well, I do want to say, once again, editors, I apologize for testing out the limits of our bonus round. We did a bonus round that was cut because it just didn't work. But I was my mom and dad watched this movie when I was growing up, so I remember bits and pieces of it. I remember the snake scene being far more fearful than it was now. Like, I thought it was terrifying when I was little. I also have this very like specific memory of her shoes, like the heel of her shoe popping off and then like taking the heel off of the other one to make her shoes more
Even
jungle worthy.
Jungle worthy.
And as a kid, I was like, that's clever. And as an adult, I'm like, this is all stupid. But my apologies are that I did not remember how much gunfire is in my romance movie. And so I added up all the times I heard like gunfire, but like really rapid fire gun. And it was just a nonstop bonus rounds of pew, 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 pew. Like, and it was counting all of them. It was too much. We cut it. Editors, I'm sorry you did all that work for nothing. I appreciated it.
sometimes the creative process is painful.
Yes, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I agree with you, Jeremy. There's a certain amount of uniqueness to the story that I really did enjoy, even though it's just strung together with convenient turn after convenient turn. You know, she happens to run into the one guy in the jungle that's white, speaks English, and has a gun. You know, like there's all this stuff that just happenstance. We're just driving by the tree that magically is on the map. Things like that are very Goonies like a Goonies vibe to the mishap and adventure. But the idea that this romance writer's sister is the one that got her into all this trouble, I found that to be kind of clever. Like she's just writing romance novels and she's not even living an adventurous life. And then all of a sudden her sister sends her this map. You're in the middle of a whole bunch of shit. But there's so much to sin in this. Most of it's just the ridiculousness of it all and how anyone doesn't just get the police involved, although they do go to the middle of a jungle. So yeah, I found it like enough of it was unique that I enjoyed myself, even though it does suffer from being a film made in the 80s. Because her entire identity isn't a strong, successful author. It is that she's not married. And so her worth is shit. And that's always hard to watch in content.
Ian, some debate and vote for you.
Oh, well, I haven't seen Romancing the Stone. I have no...
You'd love it. You'd love it. Wouldn't trigger you at all.
No, I have
nothing in there would be triggering to you.
Yeah, I have no desire to watch it and add it to the list of movies I hate because romance. And Morbius is Morbius. It is my least favorite comic book movie ever. It is possibly my least favorite theater experience. I just actively, and I was sat next to Aaron.
We were there together.
We were there together, and we just looked at each other, and like so. At the end of, and Jeremy, forgive me for I am about to sin. At the end of the Batman, we looked at each other, and we're just like, people are going to love this film. We enjoy it. I'm sorry, we understand that probably it's not super duper for us. At the end of Morbius, we looked at each other and we're just like, why do we make movies anymore? What are we doing? It's like Jared Leto knows he's so earnest. He's so sincere. Matt Smith is the only person who seems to understand what is happening here and is just having a wild blast with it. The only redeeming scene in that is him dancing, and even that's a bit cheesy. So yeah, no, it's Morbius. Yeah, that movie is a bad movie, objectively.
I cannot imagine a world in where I don't vote for Morbius here. As sinful as Romancing the Stone is in many ways, or I'm sorry, what's the Sandra Bullock one that just the Lost City 1.
Oh, Lost City, yeah.
As sinful as Lost City 1 is or 0.5. Morbius is the more sinful movie.
I think Morbius is winning the whole thing. I'm calling it now. Morbius wins Battle of the Sins.
I can think of a couple more sinful movies than Morbius, I think. But we'll see. I already got rid of Star Trek 5, I'm sorry. Oh, that's true. That's a fair point. Deneé, your vote?
Morbius.
Jeremy?
Morbius.
All right. The audience agrees 88% to 12%. 88% to 12%, just proving that somebody who filled this out thought they were voting for the better movie.
Yeah.
So let's see. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 versus Dinosaur. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 versus Dinosaur, both written by Deneé and Chris writing these. So, Deneé, you are the expert here. Sonic got 165 sins. Dinosaur with only 101. This is a bit of a mismatch, a 102 seed versus a 27 seed. What are your thoughts on how sinful these movies are, Deneé?
Wow. What massive differences that we have in CGI. Dinosaur, from what I understand is like this really mind-bending moment where dinosaur lovers that were around when this movie came out and they were kids and they went to go see this are just like, they're real because it looked so good. And it still holds up. It was interesting to watch that and kind of see how a lot of the CGI still holds up and kind of try to remember this is a really like younger storytelling pace. The pace of Dinosaurs is like this sort of slower, separated from the herd, got to get to the green leaf, guys. Very similar to what I watched in Land Before Time, but I've never seen Dinosaurs specifically. So we're following, this one young dinosaur who's wanting to kind of like help guide the people. And it's very much the story of a child who's like, the adults aren't listening to me and I'm right. And you have to go this way. It had that vibe to it.
Yeah,
it was really
definitely.
simple storytelling. Just How do you compare that to Sonic, which is a small blue electric crack? I don't know how to help you guys decide which one's more simple here.
Because only hope.
Because I feel like the sins of the first one are more like us sort of like helping the plot get more interesting in a way. So we had to get clever with our sins. So I really feel like Sonic is going to be my choice ultimately because the sins of Sonic, I mean, did you guys watch this movie? Did you see this one?
Yep.
It was it's fun. It's so bright and colorful. You've got Tails coming in, but the plot of it all just doesn't, I don't know. It's fun to watch mindlessly, but when you begin to kind of go, what are we doing here? How did this get here? How did we get to this point? I just feel like the plot gets very, very frustrating. And then you have this whole gauntlet or whatever that's being created from these Chaos Emeralds, and that even begins to fall apart. It's just asking us to feel tension because there's a bad guy on the screen, and it's asking us to feel happy because there's a good guy on the screen. But the storytelling is very loose. It's that money grab, in my opinion. It's really fun to watch in some ways, but yeah, the simpler story I think is the better one here. But I don't know.
I'll kick off the voting and just say this is one of those cases where, and I'm not saying it's the better movie, but if you put these two movies in front of me, I think I'd rather watch Sonic the Hedgehog 2 again than Dinosaur again. I know, there's nothing about watching Dinosaur again that pulls me back, whereas I had a lot of fun. I think mainly with just Jim Carrey. I love seeing Jim Carrey kind of doing the Jim Carrey thing again. Yeah. And just when I say that, I mean like what he became famous for in his first several movies. But man, is it clearly the more sinful movie. That stuff about like the wedding and like it is the clearest case of, well, people liked him from the first movie. We got to give him something to do, that I've ever seen. It just didn't need to be in there at all. So, yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is my vote. Ian?
There is no way that the bad guys could have known that Sonic and everybody was going to end up at the wedding. And yet they infiltrate that wedding as if it was the plan from the beginning. I was watching I wasn't sending it, but I was watching it on the plane over here. And I think I was texting, may have been you, Deneé. I was like, you have to send this in the villain's plan because this is the biggest, most egregious lump of horseshit where it's like, yeah, we want these two people in the story. So put them in the story. Don't relegate them for half of it and then shoehorn them back in a way that doesn't make sense. Yeah, I haven't seen Dinosaur. I agree. By the sounds of it, I think I'd rather watch Sonic as well, but it pissed me off because the first one I had so much fun with the first film. And this I really struggled to enjoy past the cash grabbiness of it as well. Sequels, man.
Yeah. Jeremy.
So I don't remember Dinosaur very well. Is the meteor in that movie not the big one?
No,
or did they change history and the dinosaurs live on at the end of the movie, even though the meteor's already hit?
For at least a little bit, yeah.
The impression that I get is that it was inevitable that they would be dying, but they were clueless as to that. So these are the dinosaurs that weren't in the immediate impact zone. And then the idea, I think, is that what happens to Earth afterwards will eventually get them, but they don't know that.
I also remember, though, plenty of dinosaurs die on screen in this movie.
Yes.
And I'm tempted to say at least Dinosaur was trying something, but then step back and go, why were they trying that? If you've got this technology and you want to tell a story that's visually amazing with groundbreaking CGI, and you go, let's tell the most depressing story in the history of Earth, the extinction of an entire species. But yeah, Sonic 2 did what Sing 2 did, in my opinion, and squandered the goodwill of the first one. And so for that reason, it's Sonic 2.
And Deneé.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Sonic.
All right. Audience agrees 64%
Wow.
to 36%.
I'm kind of surprised because I would think that maybe Dinosaurs, because it's not as interesting to go to because it is older, maybe would have been considered more sinful. But that's interesting.
Moving on to the next battle between Adam Sandler's Click and Pineapple Express. Jeremy and Ian, you guys wrote on both of these together. 145 sins for Click, 38 seed. Pineapple Express with 113 sins as the 91 seed. Jeremy, why don't you start first? What makes these movies sinful?
I think I would respect Adam Sandler a little more if he would just put out a movie called My Hawaiian Vacation. And it was literally scenes of him at the pool with his actor friends, drinking margaritas and cracking jokes. Because Click pretends to be better than that, to be more than that. And it's not. It's derivative. It's clearly derivative of It's a Wonderful Life, but even other movies that have played with similar concepts this is a derivative of those movies. And for when it was made, which is I think in the aughts, right? It's oddly sexist. The Kate Beckinsale characters consistently dressed in skimpy, sexy outfits. It just feels so male gazy. And some of it's not even outright spoken, but then there's also some cringy 80s style humor and jokes in there. And it's just, I don't want to be the guy who takes movies so seriously that I say sincerely, I'm offended by this movie, but I'm offended by
this movie,
the effort, right?
Yeah.
It's the effort for
That's
me.
exactly it
I'd
for me.
rather see you take a big swing or take a medium swing and miss than just stand over the plate. And my baseball analogy is falling apart. Clicks is just offensive, and Pineapple Express has a few jokes that have not aged very well. This was, I think, a 2007, 2008 movie, somewhere around in there. And of course, then James Franco is now somebody who, at least for me, is tougher to enjoy, given a lot of the stories and allegations that have come out with him. But it's not derivative of anything. It's a stoner movie for about the first half, and then it turns comic action, hard left. It's not like any other movie out there. This is what I mean by taking a swing. And I don't think it lands all of its punches, but it does get better and funnier for me every time I watch it. The opening 10 minutes with Bill Hader is as good as any comedy movie's first 10 minutes ever. Anyway. So yeah, I think I've already revealed on accident where I'll be voting, but those are my thoughts on those movies.
Fine. Ian, some thoughts on these?
I know Jeremy summed it up really, really well. I was, based on reputation, I was prepared to dislike both of these movies going in because I'm not a huge Seth Rogen fan. I am publicly very much not an Adam Sandler movie fan, and it came out with opposite reactions. Like, Click did exactly what I thought it would to me, but somehow even more offensively. And Pineapple Express, I remember turning to Aaron and just being like, I'm having a good time. Is that okay? And you're like, yeah, it's a fun movie. I'm like, phew, okay, good. I can carry on enjoying it. Even though, there is some stuff that doesn't land, but it's so much fun. And that is like Seth Rogen unapologetically being like, hey, do you want to get high and make a movie?
Yeah.
Let's make it about being high. And it's so much fun. And Click, it isn't, I think, it's hard. It was either this or Wedding Singer where we wrote a sin that was like, man, it's almost impressive how you can be sexist. And there was like, he wakes up really overweight and he's like, oh no, I'm a fat guy. I can't see my dick.
Yeah.
I'm like, how many people do you want to offend in one fell swoop? Like, I don't know why that is your goal. Like, the story you want to tell here is that isn't it hard to be a dad? But if there's a better way to tell that story than what you're doing here, and I don't know, the only person I enjoyed was
the dancer, the guy.
Nope.
Christopher Walken?
Christopher Walken,
Kate
thank you.
Beckinsale.
He's
Yes,
the dancer.
Kate
He's the
Beckinsale,
guy that
yes.
did that dance thing.
Oh, the Fatboy Slim dancer. Yes. Yeah, Christopher Walken. Yeah. His line delivery is he's in the right place in this movie, and that's about it. So yes, no surprise where I'll be voting either.
Deneé, why don't you kick off with the votes?
I will always vote Adam Sandler movies to hell.
Yes. Yes.
I'll hold you to that in the later rounds. We'll see how that goes.
If it's two Adam Sandler movies versus themselves, I mean,
We both win.
Even Little Nicky?
even
He
though I
probably
haven't
wants
seen
to go
that
to
movie.
hell.
That's true.
He's
That's
like
true.
four.
Okay.
That's a
Okay.
fair
I
point.
think, if I remember.
All right. All right.
I am constantly surprised at the lack of respect for Adam Sandler's genius around these parts. He can do no wrong. His movies are amazing. No, Click is the more sinful movie here.
I'm
Like,
waiting for the punchline because that was that was hard to hear.
Yeah, in hindsight, like I'm holding on like to just the thread of Billy Madison. That's the one I'm holding on
that's,
to.
that's holding a lot of weight right now.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, at least give me Billy Madison as something. I don't want to go back and watch it. I'm so scared. But yeah, Click is the vote. You two kind of made your votes clear, but make it official. Ian
Click.
and
Click.
Jeremy. All
Click.
right. Audience agrees. Click with 70%. And Pineapple Express with 30. On to the next match. This is Predator 2 versus Clueless. Predator 2, the only movie this week that we don't have somebody on the show who wrote on. But Deneé, you did write on Clueless
Fuck this movie.
with Chris. 123 sins for Clueless, 133 for Predator 2. Talk a little bit about what makes Clueless so sinful, Deneé.
Let's first talk about a program in school called DARE.
Okay.
They would come in and they would tell you that little elementary kids, little children, let me tell you what's going to happen when you get to high school. Scary older children, seniors, are going to come up to you and they're going to force you to do drugs. And you have to find deep within yourself the way to say, everyone with me, no to drugs. I went through the whole fucking program. And every goddamn week they'd come in here and they'd scare the shit out of me about drugs.
Do you know what DARE stands for?
Drug, something, resistance education.
Yes, that's more than most people would get.
Is it
Drug
accept-
abuse.
Abuse, yes.
Drug abuse resistance education.
You must
Yep.
resist children because they lurk. Oh, do they lurk?
I always thought it was do all reefer every day.
Well, that is what it should be. So when I get to high school, I am looking in every nook and cranny for those assholes that are about it because I have been preparing my entire elementary education to
just
stand
say
up
no.
to that drug bully and say, no, I will not do drugs. Bible in one hand, DARE certification in the other. Okay? I was prepared.
And which is more
for
important?
school.
I'm not really sure.
This was me. I actually kept my certificate. I think I still have it. My DARE. Nobody ever asked me for drugs. I was so disappointed. I was ready for that fight. This movie reminds me of that. Watching this movie is like, oh my God, I'm terrified. Clicks everywhere, beautiful people everywhere, all of these things that are going to happen to me. And that's what pisses me off about fucking movies like this. Yeah, maybe it's supposed to be for older people watching it and laughing. But when you're young watching shit like this, you go in thinking, oh my God, they're going to eat me alive. If I don't do this, this, and this, and this, and this, I'm not going to survive. And they just like, it gets in your head. And that's why I hate Clueless. I hate Clueless for a lot of reasons, but that's the big one. Because when I watched this again, I got triggered. I was like, oh my God, I remember watching this being so scared of what I wore every single day and who I talked to every single day. Because I thought that this was what fucking high school was going to be like. I totally missed the Beverly Hills part. I grew up in Springfield, fucking Missouri. Okay. There was no like, Chanel on the walkway, red carpet up into class. I missed that part. I was watching the parts about how people are supposed to be together. So when I saw all the girls like together talking, I knew that I was the odd one out that they're looking at with the mousy hair and wearing the plaid shirts that they were laughing at me. And I was just waiting for them to come over and give me a pity makeover. And it never happened. And that is not why you should hate this movie, but is why I hate this movie. One of many reasons. It's just, it's a silly, stupid movie that's supposed to be interesting, but I think just a whole bunch of horny guys made it and want to watch girls walk around in cute outfits.
Yeah.
Based on Jane Austen's Emma,
Is it bollocks?
Based on.
Well, let's start the voting in
Based
discussion.
on people speaking in English, is this movie?
Yep.
Ian, why don't you start us off with some discussion about these two movies and then your vote?
I can't. I haven't seen either of them.
Well, then your vote then.
Clueless.
Fair enough.
What is
Deneé.
Predator? What is Predator 2? Oh, by the way, the other theme here is that a college-age boy is obsessed over the teenage girl that is his
Yeah.
stepsister.
Yeah.
And then they fall in love by the end.
Your turn was over.
Sorry. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
Jeremy, we need your help because I'm going to
Yeah,
admit,
because-
Predator 2, my understanding is terrible. I've never seen it, so I need you to explain
is it
why
worse?
Predator 2 is so sinful and has more sins and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, Predator 2 is objectively far and away the worst movie of these two. I think Clueless gets way more credit by modern people for brilliance than it deserves. But it is leaps and bounds better than Predator 2. Predator 2 is what happens when you follow up an incredible, inventive science fiction action film with the inverse of that. They couldn't get Schwarzenegger because he wanted too much money. So they got Gary Busey. And they moved Gary Busey, famed action star.
Yeah, seems
Gary
like a
Busey.
perfect trade. Yeah, I
Danny
don't see what the
Glover.
problem is.
Danny Glover and Gary Busey. That's after we had Apollo Creed and Arnold Schwarzenegger in the first movie. I said Apollo Creed because I can't remember his name right off the top of my head. Carl Weathers. And then they move it from a jungle setting to an industrial part of a big city with a meatpacking plant. And the meatpacking plant, it fucks with it gives them better hate vision. It's bad. It's so bad.
It honestly sounds like the Sing 2 of Predator movies.
It's so bad. It undoes all the goodwill. And this is why Prey is such a miracle, because we go from bad to worse with these Predator sequels, as they made two more after that were just Predator films. One by Robert Rodriguez, where they're actually on another planet. And then one by Shane Black 5 years ago that is just a misfire in every single way. They made two movies where the Predators fought aliens, which is what fans wanted from comic books, and they couldn't even do that good. And then we get Prey, which is nearly as good, if not better, than the original. But Predator 2 is more sinful. Up and away. Predator 2 on to the next round. And I hope the fans are with me, and I hope even Aaron votes with me so that we can see what the fans have to say and have it matter. Because Clueless, I think Clueless it's overrated. It's overrated, but it's better than Predator 2. And it's not making the mistakes of fucking up a previous film, Predator 2.
Yeah, I have not seen, as I just mentioned, I have not seen Predator 2. I have seen Clueless. I do agree that the context it was made in is definitely would have been made differently now. I think it's hard to deny that Silverstone performance is really captivating. I think she is really good, and there's a reason she kind of blew up after that.
Yeah.
I think she's.
I mean, it's a teenage angst movie.
Yeah, and
From a rich person's perspective, a very rich.
And I've seen it fairly recently. I think I watched it again over pandemic to kind of re-gauge my thoughts on it, and I still think it's pretty good. And the sins of Clueless are as you've mentioned them, but I can't imagine that they would match up to Predator 2's sins. So I will vote for Predator 2. And Deneé.
I'm gonna go Predator 2. My dislike of Clueless is more like just I didn't enjoy the movie. I didn't enjoy parts of the movie. It was easy for me to dig into and get into and like just be silly with it. But this kind of theme of like fucking up a franchise seems to be more sinful. And the movie does make sense. Like you watch it, it has all of its parts of it that make sense. You've got
Other
this,
than the driving stuff in
the
Clueless.
driving stuff does not make sense.
What is going who forces their friend onto the expressway when they don't know how to drive? Anyhow,
It does make for something funny though.
It does. So it will be Predator, and the audience was gonna go that way anyway. Predator 2 is 70%, Clueless with 30%. So Predator 2 will move on to the next round. We go on to The Matrix Resurrections versus Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh, jeez. Let's please not spend too much time here, folks.
We will not spend hardly any time here. I wrote with Chris on Everything Everywhere All at Once. It continues to be an amazing movie. The only sins of everything. There are sins. There are definitely sins. There are certainly conveniences and all sorts of stuff that happens with the travel through the different dimensions and how it works. It doesn't define its rules very well, or it doesn't define them, I guess, accurately enough to be consistent. And so there are those things, but it's clearly a phenomenal movie. Matrix Resurrections, Jeremy and I wrote on 180 sins. We both took this movie to task for many, many things. Jeremy, I will let you continue on with those thoughts.
It's just hard to imagine the same director misunderstanding their own work. And maybe that's not exactly what happened, but from what I have read, they based the original Matrix, a lot of its ideas and themes, around a nonfiction work by a philosopher. Mm-hmm. And after that philosopher saw the first Matrix film, he said, "You got it all wrong." And they made the sequels as an attempt to correct what they got wrong about this man's philosophy. And he still said they got it wrong. And so it doesn't wholly surprise me that Resurrections exists as it is. The most fascinating thing about this movie isn't anything in the movie. It's the people who have decided that Wachowski made this movie specifically to be bad and boring as some sort of 5-level chess move or something. And that just defies all understanding of how Hollywood works and even how filmmaking desire works. Nobody would spend that much time on something awful.
You would hope.
No, I'm convinced here that this is
I
Andy
like
Kaufman
it though. I like
taken...
that narrative, that troll narrative. That's an interesting narrative to me. I agree with you that it doesn't seem likely to me, but there's something really interesting about Lana Wachowski making this movie as a middle finger to being told they have to make this movie because The Matrix is a property.
If the Wachowskis had made Matrix and Bound level films since the first Matrix movie,
mm-hmm.
I might entertain that theory. But they didn't. They made Cloud Atlas and they made Speed Racer.
Speed Racer's good. Continue.
Don't. I have never threatened to exert my power during a podcast. They produced V for Vendetta, which I really like, but I just don't feel like the body of work suggests Lana Wachowski could come in and expertly make a terrible movie, tearing down the idea of making sequels. I don't believe that. I will never believe that.
Here's the thing: even if she did, that doesn't make the movie good.
No, it's still a bad movie.
It's still a terrible movie.
It's not the reason people make movies for the most part, unless you're Ari Aster, and then you make whatever the fuck you want. So yeah, what is it going up against that it's going to beat?
Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Oh yeah, fuck it, man. Why did you let me talk for 5 minutes after I said let's not talk for a long? Matrix Resurrections. I voted.
Yeah, I will also vote for Matrix Resurrections. It is interesting to me, if nothing else, that every decision Resurrections makes seems to be the wrong decision. It's wild to me. It wants so desperately to, it feels like, be cool and have cool moments, and none of it makes sense. None of how anybody gets anywhere, anything that happens, any motivation, any character, it's all a mess. So yeah, Matrix Resurrections for me. Deneé, do you have any thoughts?
Nope.
Okie doke.
But I shall vote Matrix.
Ian.
I was struck by how Keanu and Carrie-Anne Moss did not want to be in this movie. Quite clearly on screen through their performances. It is The Matrix.
All right.
And two people who probably did want to be in it, Fishburne and Weaving, were not allowed to be in it.
Got forked, yep.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. All right, our final battle of round one. We have arrived at Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home versus the Mitchells versus the Machines. No, that is not a three-way fight.
Yes.
Star Trek for the Voyage Home or Mitchells versus the Machines. Jeremy and Ian writing on Star Trek for the Voyage Home. Deneé and I writing on Mitchells versus the Machines. 116 sins for Mitchells versus Machines, 138 for the Voyage
Did
Home.
I not write on Mitchells versus the Machines?
Not according to what I have here.
It says it was Aaron, Deneé, and Jeremy was the reviewer. But it's
That's
a
what it
long
said.
time ago. This was.
Well, check the script. Do you remember writing the stuff in your
I
tab?
mean, that's asking a lot.
I feel
Well,
like
someone won't have a tab.
if
It
I
was-
did not write sins on this, then I am creating entire memories, whole cloth, out of
No,
nothing.
Jeremy, you have a tab and I have a tab. Oh, was this one where maybe I wasn't well? Because I have a tab in here.
Oh, okay. Maybe you were originally scheduled, and then
Something
I
must have
came in
happened.
to
'Cause
support.
you-
Okay, wow,
'cause
you were
I-
making me question my sanity.
Oh man,
No,
that's
No,
scary.
it's great because I'm watching it going, I don't remember this at all. Yeah, so this is Jeremy and Aaron.
Okay. All right. Okay. Ian, talk about Star Trek The Voyage Home.
Oh boy, nothing made me more. No, talk about the sins of the movie, not your personal experience with writing Star Trek.
No,
stuff.
that's how I do it. I just write the personal experience. Start off with a
Yeah.
story about your own troubles with elementary school. That goes
Yes, ma'am.
really well with the
No,
family.
you don't want that. I was giddy writing the sins for this movie. This is I think to date the quickest script I've ever written, the easiest script I've ever written. It flew out of me. I wrote something ridiculous like 160 sins for a basically 90-minute movie. And it's so hard to sin because it's so it's so easy to sin, but it feels disingenuous because it's so bonkers. It's so, yeah, we're going to travel through time and get whales, and we're going to bring them to the future to stop this spaceship that wants to talk to the whales. And the entire movie is summed up by Kirk saying, "Are there whales on other planets?" I was like, dude, did you just ask if a species on Earth individually evolved on another planet entirely? This movie does not care for science. It does not care for much of anything other than let's see the crew of the Enterprise bumblefuck their way through the 80s America. Wouldn't it be fun if Chekhov asked for nuclear vessels to a police officer? A Russian in the 80s asking a police officer where the nuclear vessels are, and the man isn't immediately arrested. It's so much fun, but yeah, it could be up against The Undiscovered Country, the most sinful of the Star Trek movies. The Undiscovered Country is sinful for being just terribly plotted and generally pants. The Voyage Home is just egregious with its nonsense, but still a fun ride. And I haven't seen Mitchells versus the Machines.
Jeremy, thoughts first on Star Trek The Voyage Home and then Mitchells versus the Machines.
One of my favorite tweets that I see every few months is the guy posting his text message conversation with his girlfriend, and he says, "My girlfriend's watching Star Trek 4 for the first time," and her first
Yes.
text is, "Shut up, they are not going back in time to get whales," and then her next text like an hour later is like, "Never mind, this is the greatest movie ever."
It's so true.
And I mean, it's such a blatant, and Star Trek has always been an issues forefront tackler in terms of diversity and equality and the earth, and this is such a blatant, eco-friendly. This started somewhere with somebody who wanted to save the whales, and it became a Trek film, but it succeeds because unlike any other Trek film, it's a comedy.
Yes.
It's not trying to be very serious. Mitchells versus the Machines, God, I watched that with my wife and we loved it. And then I watched it to sin it, and it is full of all the same kind of bullshit that Star Trek Voyage Home is full of. And you have to be enjoying the family dynamic so much that you just don't care about any of the questions that pop up along the way. Thankfully, I think as a movie, it works fine. A family dynamic is really strong. So that at the end, when the dad and daughter start working together and that song comes on, like almost get chills with the fun of it all. But like a lot of animated movies, it's hey, don't look at that, don't look at that, don't ask those questions. Let's get over there and we'll do this over here. And so it's really hard to choose between these two. I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, Mitchell's versus the Machines. I remember writing on that and just being, I mean, okay, disappointed is too strong of a word, but it was just, I remember going through it and just going, man, I love this movie so much. It is so much nonsense. This movie is so much nonsense. How primarily does this all-knowing, all-sentient AI not catch the Mitchells family? There is no universe in which they escape this, culling of the population and sending them off. It's just based on such a ridiculous, faulty premise. And then the villain is foiled by a glass of water. I get that it's funny, but no. Again, an all-knowing, all-sentient AI would have so many multiple copies of themselves in so many different places.
You've seen Ultron.
The fact that they fell into a glass of water and that's the end is such a glass of nonsense water. And yeah, so this movie is so sinful and it's so good. I love it so much. But yeah, well, Deneé, you get to vote first, since you apparently didn't write on either of these. So,
well, yeah.
Which do you vote as the more sinful movie?
I value my friendship with Ian. I have to go with Mitchell's versus the Machines. if we were all in the same room, he'd be kicking me under the table right now. No, I think like just hearing what you guys said about it, I feel like Star Trek 1 is firmly planted in its universe. It's doing what it's doing. It's confident, making sense. And then Mitchell's versus Machines is like, let's just do shit to make a movie. And I feel like that would probably fall apart a little bit more in my mind. So I really am going to do Mitchell's versus the Machines for reasons.
Ian, what is your vote?
This is really, really hard because I feel cheap putting Mitchell's through when I haven't seen the movie. Star Trek 4 has so many sins.
No, it doesn't. It's Star Trek.
It's so many. The Michelob product placement, the whole pizza scenario that I'd never looked twice at and Jeremy just destroyed. There's an entire goddamn pizza. What's going on here? Oh man, I didn't put Star Trek 5 through, and I still think about that. How I didn't vote for Star Trek 5
as the more sinful
movie, and I don't want to make the same mistake.
You know, your job's at stake right now, Ian, too.
More so than ever.
The pressure's on, man.
I think
the entire fandom will be crumbling for this one vote.
Mitchell's is the more sinful movie.
Okay. Jeremy.
Trek 4.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that's where my heart was. My heart said Trek 4, or my mind. I don't know how that works.
This is really hard. This is more tough than it should be. This is way more tough than it should be. If you are, and this is again what I think is kind of the beauty that happens in this tournament every once in a while. If you're looking at these two movies and going, which is the better movie? I don't think it's a question. Mitchell's versus the Machines is a better movie. But boy, is it sinful. But the Voyage Home is the Voyage Home.
Let's let the fans decide.
Yeah, I was leaning that way anyway. So yeah, I'm going to say Star Trek, The Voyage Home is the more sinful movie. So the fans, it comes down to you on this final one of round one. Maybe our closest debate ever in the first round when we finish off with it. And it will be by a vote of 76% to 24%. Star Trek.
The Whales!
The Voyage Home will be moving on to the second round. 76 to 24. So there you go. There will be a Star Trek movie in the second round.
Woo!
Woo, or maybe the opposite of woo, considering
I know Star Trek is sinful.
So there you go. All right, we've made our way through round one. Some very interesting matchups in round two. As mentioned, if you want to go vote for those, you can do that at challenge.com. That's like challenge, but with an O instead of an A for the second one. And that is /2022 Sin Battle.
Which is going to be linked in the description of this podcast.
Correct. You don't have to memorize it. It will be linked in the description if you want to check it out there. So congratulations, guys. We finished the first round. We're on to the second round. What's interesting about one of the interesting things about the second round is there are 24 or 25 movies we haven't talked about that just got a buy into the second round because they are the top seeds. So we still haven't talked about some of the most sin-packed movies of the year.
Stupid tournament. It doesn't make any damn sense.
That's going to wrap it up for Behind the Sins this week. Don't forget to make sure you're subscribed. Go ahead and leave a comment or rating as well. Feel free to hang out with us on Twitter. It's at CinemaSinsBTS is where you can find us on Twitter. So for Ian Whittington, Jeremy Scott, Deneé Hughes, a constipated shart, and myself, we will see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Send any feedback to bts@cinemasins.com and be sure to subscribe, rate, and comment. Find more ways to connect by visiting cinemasins.com/BTS.
How are the teeth, Jeremy?
God damn it. I sat in that waiting room for 27 minutes past my appointment time. And then I went to the front desk and said, I got to go. It was already going to be tight, but if she walks out right now and says my name, I'm going to miss this appointment I have. So now I have to be there at 8 in the goddamn morning tomorrow.
Oh, that's gross.
So, yeah, I'm frustrated with the dentist right now.
You know, there are many reasons to be frustrated with a dentist. That is certainly one of them.
How come you've never seen male dental hygienists?
Never?
I have never. I'm sure they exist.
I have
but
never.
I have never seen one.
In my entire life, I have had male and female dentists, but only female dental hygienists. And I wonder if it's just a field that men, I don't know. I want to know what the deal is there. I'm not saying it's like sexism or anything. I'm just saying, why is that?
I don't know the answer yet, but on a quick Google search, which we know we can trust, there are over 59,000 dental hygienists currently employed in the United States. 93.1% are women.
That's
Wow.
a large number.
Yes.
That's huge.
That's crazy.
There's
That
more
has
male
got to
cheerleaders.
be a barrier to access kind of thing. That's got to be their pigeonholed out of dentistry and into hygienery.
I think it's clearly discrimination against men. I think clearly that's what's going on
Continue,
here.
Aaron, please. This will be a popular
classic
take.
case.
There's an enamel ceiling that men have yet to break through.
I'm sick to the back teeth of your puns.
Yes, you are. It used to be the same for nurses, right? But there are more male nurses now. But that's almost a 1-to-1, right? Like the nurse is the dental hygienist of the doctor to the dentist, right?
Seems like
Yeah,
it.
I mean, it's the same kind of relationship. And yeah, you see a lot more male nurses than I'm just curious. I don't mean to, take up anybody's precious brain space with this conundrum, but
I have
Too
nothing
late.
better to do with this brain space, man. This is all I'm thinking about. I'm not going to do the show today. All I'm doing is just researching dental hygienists.
That's it. As of 2022, 9% of the nurse workforce was male. So,
okay, so that's kind of similar.
that's
93,
very similar.
so
Yeah.
6.9% of the hygienists are men. That's almost 7. So that's pretty similar.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wild.
It's weird and wild stuff.
It is.
All right. Now we're going to do flight attendants.
I see plenty of male attendants.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
14% male
No,
flight attendants
that's not
as
right.
of 2023.
No.
I believe
We're
that.
finally making ground in the
don't
flight
believe that.
attendant.
Do you want me to send you the study demographic?
No.
thing? Oh, okay. All right.
I just want to argue blindly from a point of ignorance. It's much more fun.
Second study here says 16%, so that's a little different than 14.
That's the number I was going for.
That is correct. 14.
That's believable.
Fucking wrong.
I hate this line because in this article that I'm reading, it's going into like questioning about how are males in this gender dominated area of dentistry.
Yeah.
And they interviewed some people and said one of them stated that a lot of people that they work on had said that they've never had a male dental hygienist before. And the quote is, one also mentioned that because it is such a rarity, it can be a good conversation starter.
Nope.
Listen, if we hate conversations when people are doing our hair, I hate it when the dental hygienist is asking me a question while her fingers are in my mouth. How am I supposed to talk?
Yeah.
It's such a we don't. Headphones in, do your stuff, get out of
Yeah.
my mouth. See you next time.
Yeah. Don't fucking talk to me.
That can apply to so much.
You know, I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say it, but Ian's here to say it for me.
I guess that's the cold open.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Do your stuff. Get out of my mouth.
Headphones
Headphones
in.
in. I don't want to hear what you have to say. Do your work. Make it count.
Yeah.
Be thorough.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be back here tomorrow.
Make sure you don't leave any deposits behind. And
Exactly.
Oh, I'm going to work that into a future book somewhere.
yes, I meant the hygienist.
Oh my God.
One study revealed patients assumed a male dentists were more likely to expect them to endure pain without complaining and be less responsive to their needs compared to female counterparts. This is now going into the perception
is that
of the
pro-
I
person.
mean,
Yeah.
that's just how I
That's
expect
gender
men
perception.
versus women
Yeah.
in any situation.
Yeah, they're kind of going into stereotypical stuff now.
I
Yeah.
expect men to think that I can endure pain, which I cannot. And I expect empathy from women. That's an everyday, that's
Mhm.
bottom line right there.
There it is. And it all started with just a quick check-in. How are your teeth?
Yeah.
I actually did have a dentist that was a male who expected me to endure pain, and they're now in jail because of it.
Do tell, Deneé.
No, I'm not going to go into dental shit. It's so triggering for 50% of the people on the show. But I'll tell you about it, Aaron.
In jail specifically for acts done to you
Mm-hmm. Well, to
and
me
other
and
people?
others, yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, fuck.
That's a fucking horror movie.
Yes. Yes.
Dentist this summer.
Was it like Rocky Horror Picture Show? Like, I mean, it was just they enjoy
I
inflicting
wish they
pain.
were singing. Yeah, that'd be cool.
My dentist told me that in modern era, if you feel pain while you're getting a dental procedure done, then your dentist is screwed up. Like, other
Yeah.
than the
Mhm.
pain of the Novocaine going in,
Right.
which they can't help. And I mean, I've had a root canal and had 8 of my front teeth shaved down and veneers put on when I was in the chair for 5 hours, and I have not felt pain in that chair. So
Yeah, it's
I
just an
appreciate my
endurance
dentist.
thing.
well,
Yep.
I fell asleep when they were putting the veneers on. I woke up and my wife was there. She's like, "It's time to go," and I was like, "That was fast."
Hey, Ian, what were we going to tell Aaron about?
I was just about to say last week, Ian was about to tell me a funny story, and he was like, "Nope, gonna save it for
save it.
BTS outtakes."
We have reached a season in our friendship where we're now doing BTS again, and it means we can no longer talk about anything fun because I got to save it for the outtakes. Because what's the story if it isn't recorded?
That's right.
So this could be one of 2 stories that we have, but you know that I think it's this one. You know that song, "Give me 3 days another road that I must travel."
Oh, Kyrie eleison.
No, it's not what it is though, is it? That's not the words of the song. So that comes on in
the radio.
on the radio, and I'm just like, I'm bopping along, I'm enjoying it, and Deneé's like, "What did you just say?" And I went,
And I was like, no, you
No,
said
no, you
words.
said-
What words did you
said
just
words.
sing?
So I said, well, the lyrics are, "Give me 3 days along the road that I must travel." Give me 3 days along the road and it's just that works. And Deneé's just like, "No, that's not right." That doesn't, I'm like,
Well,
it's right.
to be fair, I have been working in my life in general about never assuming I'm right. So I was like, that's not right, but maybe I'm wrong because I thought
Yeah.
it was Kyrie eleison or something. And then I'm like, am I wrong about that? So then we had to figure out, what is this song even called?
We don't know the band. We don't know the actual name. So I Google, "Give me 3 days along the road that I must travel," and it works. And it comes up with the song. And I'm like, I'm not alone. I am one of many. And yes, the song is "Kyrie eleison," which is "Lord have mercy,"
It indeed
upon the
is.
road that I must travel, by Mr.
Mister?
Mister.
Yeah, that's
Not to be confused with Twisted Sister
Right.
Yeah.
or Mr. Big.
It was a little bit crushing to watch Ian go, of course it's religious.
Of course, yes. I started reading the lyrics and I was like, "Oh, it's a God song, damn it."
Oh my God.
So now he's conflicted and singing it as much as he's been singing it the
I'm
last
gonna
week.
sing it. It's still, "Give me 3 days
It's not.
It doesn't make sense. I was like, what did you think the rest of the song was? I don't know. I just kind of.
You basically did the reverse version of what we all did growing up in the church, which is to change secular lyrics so that they were about God. You're just changing the God lyrics so that they're not about God.
Deny them entirely. Look, this path is going to take 3 days max. Give me that, and I'll be fine.
We did that all the time. Like, what was it? It's God's prerogative.
No.
Oh my Jesus! I remember when the entire Winans family was on Oprah, and they sang "Yesterday" by the Beatles. Only it was Calvary.
Oh
Calvary, that's the place where Jesus died for me. Something for eternity. And at the time, I was like, "Oh yes,
so cool."
And now I'm like, "Oh no."
We're watching RuPaul's Drag Race because I just kind of was intrigued and interested.
He joined
wanted
my
to watch
chaos.
It.
Yeah.
Wanted to watch. We watched the finale, and this blew my poor naive brain. And Aaron, I'm sure you specifically will have an opinion on this.
Oh, okay.
For the finale, there are 4 people, and then they narrow it down to 2. And it's in front of a live audience, but the show itself is not live, it's pre-recorded. What they broadcast on the TV, they announced the winner, and we're all like, yay, cool, they won.
Yeah.
The person they just announced doesn't know if they're the winner. They record 2 reactions, so they do it both times. So the show that goes out, we don't get the genuine reaction because they're worried about it leaking. So what are we doing then? We're missing out. I'm not seeing their joy.
That's
just and then they put it on YouTube later. They watch the video and then they're shown the final version, and that's when they find out
that they won,
which one won, and that's what we get on like some YouTube add-on video. I'm like, what are we doing here? We're missing the excitement for the sake of a potential leak.
Spoilers going out, that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't like that.
It just was like, what are we? I checked out so quick. I was like, I don't. It was. Grr.
How does Naughty Dog already have their next game and already working on it, and the president says it's our favorite game we've ever made, and there are hundreds of people that work there, and no one knows what that fucking game is? How
really
is that possible?
Strict, tight NDAs.
Yeah.
Then why can't this
Terrifying.
goddamn reality show do that shit?
Well, here, let me add a piece of context that I just heard that I didn't realize. This is in front of a live audience
Correct. Yes.
of hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that adds an element, because I was thinking there are ways, like Survivor has done this in 2 ways. One, what they used to do is they used to not tell them who won until the live reunion show.
Okay.
And then they would announce it live in front of the live audience.
Yeah.
But
you get to see that person.
But you get to see that person.
Moment reaction.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now they just announce it there at the last tribal council and do the reunion show there. So like they're not as worried about those people spoiling because they have super strict NDAs. But if you're in front of a live audience, like I understand. So you kind of have to make the choice.
I just think we're curing the disease by killing the patient. It's like, we don't get any spoilers because there is no spoiler to be had.
The interesting thing is you watch the finale and then you wait, and the next day on YouTube, they release a video, it's about 15 minutes long, of the top 4 contestants finding out who actually won. And it's them reacting. It's a reaction video to their own win. And then the winner goes immediately from that revelation that they actually won the crown to a live audience that's actually celebrating that they won. So it's a little bit like you do get to see it a little bit, but the show is like a production. It's this entire drag show that has all of the finalists performing, and then they record different permeations of different ones winning.
That's wild. Can you imagine if they did like the entire Final Four? Okay, now we're doing you 4, you 3,
That's
you
what they
2,
do.
and you 1. Wait, how? That's like, I mean, that's what 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, right?
Yeah, different permutations. I want to be there for this live show.
No, that's 24 permutations.
You don't need the times 1 at the end. You're already
Thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate that. I appreciate the clarification.
Save a little bit of time on that one.
That one went really quick in my head when I got there.
Math.